Hello, folks. Welcome to another episode of The Sense of Things with Jeff and Ron. On today's show, Ron's going to give us what happened in history first. Then he's going to go over some things about migration within the United States, of states that have gained, states that have lost. I think you'll be interested in that. He's also got some really good stuff on innovation and gains in the stock market when we've had innovation, which I think hopefully we'll talk a little bit about what I think is one of the most interesting things in future here. And then he's got some charts on time in the market versus timing the market and what's been going on with the recovery we've seen that both of us agree happened way faster than we could have planned on. And I wish I even had even more cash to have put into the market this month because it's really taken off. I'm going to cover some economic stuff from this week, and I think there's some really interesting trends going on in the economics. So stay tuned. We'll be right back on in just a second. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Ron, how are you, my friend?
Good. Spring is in full bloom here. I don't know what it is by you. Heading back to Philly next week, which you and I will meet up. And the weather is mediocre back there right now.
I know. I
I'm
looked at
hoping
it
it's
today
going
and
to
I'm
tick
like,
up by the time we get out there.
Yeah, it's a middle at this point. So we shall see.
I hear you. All right, here we go. So this week in history, I got to tell you, we got a lot of stuff here. We're going to buzz through them. So here we go. So George Washington signs his first veto,
Nice.
declining a bill that would have provided more seats to the northern states. 1866, Ulysses S. Grant arrested for speeding in his horse buggy. Newspaper reports. Now, my curious is, what kind of a speed gun did they have that calibrated that? Was he just weaving in and out of traffic?
He was a drinker, so God only knows, but at least he didn't get a DUI.
No. Oh, my God. 1866, ASPCA is founded. So I thought that was interesting.
Wow, that's a long time
all the way back then. I know. 1881, Billy the Kid convicted of murder.
And then broke out of jail.
1895, General Lee surrendered. I think that's supposed to be 1865. That's my
65.
Bad. Yeah, my bad. 1896, I have some pictures of this at the very end. The first modern Olympic Games begins in Greece. I'm talking about this. We got it in the U.S. next year. Next year.
Next year. Yep.
Next year.
This year is all the soccer stuff.
Correct. Yep. All right. 1954, Bill Haley and his comics record Rock Around the Clock. What famous TV show used that as the opening to their show?
Happy Days.
Very good. 1959, NASA introduces first group of astronauts. Perfect timing with everything that's going on with the Artemis.
Yep. Rewatched the Right Stuff this weekend, actually.
I love it. You could pick that up at any point in that movie.
Absolutely.
1961, Yuri Gagarin from USSR is the first human in space.
And then they killed him a few years later, bringing him back from space.
1970, Sam Shepard, the inspiration for The Fugitive, dies of liver failure. Huh. I did not know that was based on a true story.
No, I didn't either. Interesting.
Yeah, I actually read the article on this. I'm like, wow.
The modern version of the movie, awesome, with Tommy Lee Jones.
Yep, then Harrison Ford. One of Harrison Ford's better movies. I'm not the biggest Harrison Ford fan, but he was good in that. But the thing is, during the 60s, they had The Fugitive with David Janssen. He played The Fugitive.
Yeah.
1970, Paul McCartney announces break from the Beatles. 1970, again, this was the same week. Apollo 13 launches towards the moon. We all know what happened. 4, Hank Aaron breaks Babe Ruth's home run record. I always love baseball trivia. Do you know what pitcher? First, do you know against what team and against what pitcher?
I have no clue.
It was against the Los Angeles Dodgers, and it was against left-hander Al Downing.
That wouldn't even be floating around in the useless information in my head.
Sorry, I am full of
Yeah.
useless trivia.
I can't even use my trick of drinking a couple beers and all of a sudden all the useless trivia pops out. Wouldn't have popped out at all.
Baseball and movies, I'm full of useless information. All right, here's more baseball for you. Frank Robinson becomes the first
Super
black
cool.
manager of the Cleveland Indians. He
Oh,
was
cool.
actually a player manager.
Yeah, there's not a lot of those out there, but yeah,
And then another piece of useless trivia. Who was the last player manager?
I have no idea.
Pete Rose.
Baseball's not my, huh?
Pete
Pete
Rose.
Rose? Yeah, we know how that ended.
76, Howard Hughes dies.
Yep,
1976, one of my favorite all-time movies, All the
absolutely.
President's Men. I
Yeah,
never
not a
actually,
big Robert Redford fan, but that was actually a really good movie for him.
fantastic. And actually, I've been told many times of people, you got to read the book. I'm like, the movie was damn good. No, no,
Yeah,
you got to read the book.
yeah. Well, the book's
1979.
also 780 pages, so
Oh,
yeah, I
yeah.
don't think so.
Just think about what they had to delete from there, I mean, with all
Yeah,
the information.
yeah.
Another baseball, Ken Forsch throws a no-hitter, matching a feat done by his brother Bob
Bob Ford.
Forsch, who actually had the better career. 80,
Huh?
a post-it note is invented and sold to the market.
Now,
1989,
here's a
yes.
trivia point for you. What is another 3M product that was created by the mother of a famous
Yes, Whiteout.
rock star? Whiteout.
Yeah, I think it was Peter Tork, was it? No.
No, it's
Peter
the
Nesmith.
Peter Nesmith. Yes, his
Yeah,
mom.
yeah. Yep, I knew that. I knew that one a long time ago. Full of useless information. Come on.
That's exactly right.
1989, Jim Abbott makes debut and was the first without a right hand. And actually,
Okay.
people don't realize this. He was actually a pretty good hitter in college, even though he
Yeah.
didn't have a right hand. And actually ended up throwing a no-hitter later on. I think it was with the Yankees.
All right. You want to impress me? Do it with both hands or no hands.
Hey, somebody will do that with their foot one day.
They will.
1994, Kurt Cobain dies by suicide. Another tragic day.
Idiot.
And he was 27 also, if you know the whole
27 years old.
27
Yes.
club.
What he would have done had he lived much longer, that's for sure.
I don't know. You could go back, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin,
I'm I just some of the biggest geniuses ever have just been idiots and killed themselves.
or just self-sabotage.
Yeah.
Jim
Yeah.
Morrison, another one.
Another
I'm
one.
a
Yep.
big time Doors fan, so
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
very frustrating.
Yeah, like I said, it's just frustrating when I'm like, you would have had such an amazing, and then you have the guys from the Rolling Stones, and I think that every day they wake up and go, "Good God, I'm still here. What do I
And it's
have to
funny
do to kill
because the one
myself?"
guy in the band that really was not a partier, he was not a womanizer, was Charlie Watson. He was the first one to die.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually,
Yeah,
Brian Jones was, if you want to look back at it, and he was certainly a
theoretically, yeah,
genius in many ways. But of all
yeah,
the years, Charlie Watts was the first one to
yeah.
pass.
Like I said, I think the other two original founders, I think every day wake up, look in the mirror, and go, "Holy shit, I'm still here."
Keith Richards has been off alcohol for years, and I think he said it was tougher for him, I think, to quit smoking than it was drinking.
Yeah, yeah.
How he hasn't turned to dust yet, I have no idea.
I really, honestly, I think I think at one point in his life, he had a full blood transfusion, if I remember correctly, because he had so much
Just
garbage in his
one?
system. Yeah, exactly.
I hear you. All right, here we go. Let's get into some meat here. Oh,
Yeah.
so here are some
Oh,
pictures from
there's
the
the
first
Olympics. Okay.
Olympics. I actually had these, and then when it was the first week, I'm like, I had to go into my archives and get these because I thought it was amazing. Look at how they lined up for a sprint
Yeah.
race, and look how they were dressed for a marathon. Remember,
Yeah.
they didn't even have sneakers back then.
No, they had basically these little leather. They
I don't
effectively
even think they
ran
had the spike
barefoot.
track shoes. I don't think they even
Yeah.
had that.
Yeah. They ran effectively barefoot. These were some tough dudes.
Yeah. All right, so here we go. So migration to the United States. So I don't think anything here surprises me. I know in the
No.
last 6 or 7 years, Phoenix Metro, where I am right now, has had population growth over the other top six cities. New York, LA, Chicago, Houston, then Phoenix and Philadelphia all had negative population growth. But if you were
Hmm.
looking at the overall state, New York, what are the two biggest tax states? New York, and California.
Look at Massachusetts. I didn't realize that. Holy crap.
Yeah, big tax state. But here, look at
Yep.
this. People moving to Delaware, 54%.
That is
And I got to
amazing
tell you,
because
there's a
I'm
lot
like,
of
it's
open
a
space
really
in
small
Delaware.
state. And yeah, when you look, because we're be up in Philly and we're going to try and do a little run through to check Delaware off of our list of states that we've been in. And I'm like, there's nothing to do there. Well, Wilmington's the biggest city and it's kind of but
Yeah, look, Texas with a nice bump.
yep.
Tennessee, look, people have been living
Yeah.
in Tennessee for years. I thought that was interesting. But yeah,
Well, it
if you
was
notice,
interesting. There's a lot of people from Texas that moved during the pandemic and later moved to Tennessee because it was like, okay, our prices in real estate went up just ridiculous and it wasn't happening in Tennessee. So a ton of people moved there.
yeah, but here's the crazy thing. Northern states, people are moving out of there. Look at the growth here. Idaho,
Yeah.
63%, but South Carolina had the biggest with 79.7%.
Wow. That's amazing.
Here,
And you hear so much about Florida, and that's really not as
yeah, but it's pretty saturated where you can live too. But
yeah.
what the one thing I thought was interesting, I know it's an expensive state to live in. Hawaii had
Yeah.
negative population growth. I thought that was interesting.
But you got to remember too, you wiped out a pretty big city in Maui. So a lot of people just went, okay, this is it. I'm out of here at that point. Yeah, it's not a ton, but I think it's just massively, and it's interesting, even Alaska lost a ton of people.
Yeah, I hear you. I
Yeah.
mean, you can only live in a few parts in Alaska too.
Yeah, but there's people that like, oh, this is the greatest thing. I love living out in the country or whatever. I'm like,
Not during
okay,
the
when it's
winter.
when it's
Only
cold, yeah, when it's cold like 12 months of the year, not
7
really
months of the
me.
year it's winter.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Then I thought this was interesting. If we look all the way out to the late 19, when you look at select innovations that came out, what happened in the market? Now, this was interesting. I didn't think the microwave came out until the 70s. I thought that stood out to me. Now,
Yeah,
jet flight came out in 1939, but it really didn't become prevalent until the 50s and 60s. Nuclear power we know in 42. But I
mm,
look at this like with the space age. It
yep,
basically, if you remember, the 70s were just the malaise following
yep,
the moon. It was like the moon landing and like, all right, we're done.
mm,
Also had the oil embargo and things like
yeah.
that.
It's just
But then
high
you take a
inflation. It was just everything bad for a decade.
yep, and then you take a look, and then the 80s, right? And then tech took
Mm,
over. You had technology, you had Microsoft, the web, right? Or even though that was
mm.
really the mid 90s.
And Al Gore. So yeah.
Yeah, thank Al Gore. Yeah. Yeah, he just said yes. You had Google in 98. I don't know why they
Yeah.
put the Prius here, but I guess that was the first mainstream
It was
EV.
the
Wikipedia, I thought was interesting. I still use it today, but Facebook was 2004. That's when it was out there. Really didn't become mainstream until a few years later.
yeah,
I
because I
think
mean
the
you had a couple of the
iPhone,
others that were really on top. Yeah, iPhone. Just
iPhone, in my opinion, was, I think, the catalyst for a lot of stuff. And then obviously Uber, and I don't know why Uber in 2009 is a big innovation thing, but
yeah,
the Tesla certainly in 2012. I remember when that thing was like selling for 20 to 30 bucks a share
sure.
pre-split. And it was just like, yeah, they're a nice little company, they're growing,
Well,
and
you've
then it
had
took
so
off.
many attempts at alternatives to the big three, and they've all failed miserably until Tesla came along and Elon just went, you know what? I'm just barreling forward full bore. It's interesting that because I've got a client that's a huge Tesla guy, and he's scrambling to buy the model he likes, which I think it's the Model X or whatever. He got the Plaid because he was like, I like that style. I don't like the one, but they're basically going down to one ugly model and ugly truck, and that's it. But people still buy them.
Elon really isn't involved with Tesla. He's much more involved with SpaceX
Oh,
Robotics and the
absolutely.
AI company.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's, hey, I did it. Time to move on.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah, we're
still
still
fun.
going. We're making money. I'm off doing things that I do best, which
But
is
it is
come up with new
funding
ideas.
everything for him.
Yeah. Yep.
Area. All right. So this chart, if you have never seen this before, you should have. And if you've already
Mm,
seen it, it bears repeating. So this is about Not timing the market, but time in the market. And if you take a look, really, look, we'll see how this pans out this year. But last year, people panicked, people sold out. And then one
Hmm.
day the market was up 10%, I believe it was April 8th last year.
Yep.
And if you missed that one day and then decided to get back in, you didn't lose, but you missed out big. And
Hmm.
it's one of those things. And now, right now, look, this war is far from over. I don't
Hmm.
believe but as long as the bombs are under control and everything else, and we're not going to blow them back to the Stone Age, the market may hold. We'll see. I don't
Hmm.
know. I don't know if we're going to reach new highs in the next few months. I just think we're going to be walking on eggshells here. But again, you don't want to pull your money out of the market. You want to
Hmm.
add on the way down to high quality positions. Your thoughts?
I totally agree. And I think the end of combat type operation where we're bombing the living crap out of them, I think we're pretty well done with that at this point. You can see the administration's kind of shifting gears into a new phase, which is blockade their ports so they basically have no money coming in. And then now with the Treasury Department working on the sanctions and everything else, pretty severe sanctions, they're just going to choke them out at this point. They beat them up pretty bad. Now they're just going to choke them out.
Yeah, but the
So
Strait of Hormuz is not open.
it is open. It's just people are scared because they think that these idiots are going to fire off a rocket or something
So
at these at the
it's not
tankers.
really free and open.
It is open. It is free and open. It's the insurance companies that are blocking it because they've been running ships through there. Some of the, yeah, the claim that there was all these mines and all that, there is none. The U.S. Navy ran back and forth through there and found no mines. So it's mainly just the companies not insuring these ships. And yeah, there's always that chance that some idiot with an idiot with a rocket fires one off from shore into it. But they have no Navy, they have no Air Force. They really don't have a leg to stand on at this point, is my take on it. So I think we're closer to the end
Then
than
they
the
should
beginning.
have then they should have done a death kneel by now, and they have not.
That's because they're idiots.
Okay.
But yeah, they're literally. I look at it at this point. They are literally nuts at this point, and they don't care about their people.
They are
And
not going to give in.
I guarantee you, they're not going to give in, but they're going to have no choice at some point. So let me quickly whip through the stuff that I have here. Let me get this thing up on the screen. So just looking at some of the economic data this week, I there's some things I have concerns about that I think we need to keep an eye on. I've been keeping track of home sales and things like that because it's such a big driver of our economy. So, looking at existing home sales this week, this came out on Monday. So, this is all finally current data. We're through the pandemic lag stuff. Came in this week. Prior month, we were at 4.09 million of existing home sales. We dropped to 3.98. So it's not a dramatic drop, but it's a trend that you don't really want to be on. We're down 3.6% month over month, 1% year over year. When you look at, let me get this out of the way, housing market index, this is another one that kind of is coming in on the bottom end, actually below consensus, below the previous month. So this is something I want to keep an eye on because, like I said, it's such a driver across the board because people getting into new homes or start to go to Home Depot and blah, blah, blah. It's just a lot of things that happen. And if that's slowing down, that really hurts the economy overall. Now, that's the bad. The good, PPI. March, we were full on in the war. PPI came out this week, month over month, 0.5%, which the market kind of went, what? How could that happen? Consensus was 1.2. Once again, even with food and energy and stuff like that, it's still, it's really well better than what had been anticipated by the hand wringing economists that are out there. So we'll see what happens this month in April. This is the funny one, and I love the consensus outlook here. Manufacturing seems sluggish with the index barely in contraction territory at minus 2.0 for April, down from an already unimpressive minus zero point 0.2 in March. Yeah, it came in at 11, Empire State. So,
Gotta love
oops.
economists.
Yeah, boy, really caught that one right on the money there, bud. Import export prices. Once again,
So wait, hold
another
on. So why
factor.
didn't they change the? Oh, I guess the consensus was before the actual.
Yeah, consensus is always there before. Then they give the actual, which makes them look like complete idiots. Import export prices. Once again, okay, what's the theory? Everything is hard. The economists are hand wringing because of the conflict. Consensus was 2.1% increase in import prices. It was 0.8. 1.7% in export prices, 1.6, which is good because we want export prices to be up a little bit, but import prices have been down pretty significantly here. Last but not least, and this is probably the most concerning thing for me when you see the next slide. Energy Information Administration put out crude oil inventories week over week. Prior week, we were 3.1 million barrels. This week, we're negative 0.9 million barrels. I don't know how you can have a negative. We're down basically almost a million barrels from the previous week, effectively, is what it means. So, why is that concerning to me? This. Because as of the beginning of the blockade, which of course the blockade's up here, this is the line of ships coming to the Gulf of America from every place, because with this shutdown or this not really transiting traffic, these guys are going, we need oil from someplace, and it's coming from us. The challenge we have, and I think the administration realizes this, they're having a call with the big oil companies to say, hey guys, you've got to increase production at this point so that we can handle this need for oil coming in. And I think we're going to have to, even if prices come down, they're going to have to stay high on production to keep basically, because I'm guessing the vast majority of these tankers are probably heading back this direction to Asia at that point.
And Europe.
Yeah, and Europe. Yeah, that's all these ones over here that emptied out in Europe are coming over here, which I would assume these probably came to America anyhow at that point because it's certainly the shorter distance to come. So that's my take on it for the week. So like I said, I think some things to be cognizant of. Real estate worries me, and I think oil supplies. We are a major supplier. We do 25% of the world's oil. By the end of this, I think we might end up doing more because I think a lot of people are going to go, hey, it's not worth it. Yes, it costs a little bit more to transit that distance, but you don't have the risk premium on if you don't.
Yeah. Like I said, look, I didn't hear any deadline or line in the sand and for anything to be done, but I think Congress is going to get involved here. I don't know to what extent because they need more budget and appropriations. I don't
Mhm.
know how that's going to go.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's we've got to fund our operations and stuff like that. So yeah, that may be the fight over appropriations and all that, but once again, there's vehicles to get through that point at this point.
I
Great.
hear you.
Look forward to seeing y'all. Ron and I will probably do a quick little short video next week. We're going to take the week off from doing a show, but we may do a quick surprise video while we're in Philly together. So make sure you keep an eye out. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and we will see you guys back here the very next time.